Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe with episode 15. Promised to be a short one because I got a headache like that. Episode 15, the full circle. Here in Space 1999 series as we keep trucking along. We only got about 10, no, not even, nine left before we wrap up the first full year. And by the way, it's been a while since I've showed it up, but this is compliments of Shout Factory's, it's starting to come. I try to leave the wrapping on just to help preserve it, but Shout Factory put out a really, really, really awesome set, both years and a supplemental disc, and just good stuff. I haven't checked the price on this lately, but if you're a child of the 70s like me, or just have a love for nostalgia that's even maybe not your nostalgia but others, look, man, you can't go wrong with Space 1999. It holds up. It holds up. But 15, I don't know how much I really want to talk on 15. The Full Circle, directed by Bob Kellett, and Jesse Lasky Jr. in writing. Of course, it's, John Kenneth Muir, who wrote Space 1999, a reference guide to the show, which I highly, highly, highly suggest. You take a look at this, pick it up if you can. It is good. It is good. One of the things that he provides is an interesting quote that from the show that really stands out to him. And I have to say, this quote really stood out to me as well. John Koenig's character said this, because we couldn't speak to each other, couldn't communicate, we misunderstood, yet it was only us there. Of course, reflecting on his experience as a Stone Age man. And so really the story here is our heroes of Moonbase Alpha have found yet another planet to discover, and that is Retha, an anagram of Earth, which is weird because they don't spend a whole lot of time mulling over the idea of colonizing this planet. They only got like a 2-day window as they're passing by it, and wouldn't you know it, one of the scout missions they've sent down has gone missing. And so Koenig is able to get Paul to, by remote control, bring the Eagle up. And what do they find? They find a dead, it's an empty ship, but a dead Stone Age person. So begins the mystery. Where is the crew and who is this guy? So, of course, Koenig leads a mission, what do you call it there? A rescue mission, right? Down to the planet. And this begins a chain of effect, right? Where, they go down. Now, there is this area where they begin, the first group runs into this area where there is this like wall of mist, and when they've gone into this mist, they've disappeared and there's no contact. Now when Koenig is down there on the bottom, him and Helena actually both end up going into this mist, and so contact is lost with them. And so then Victor, or Alan and so Alan Carter and Sandra, they go down as a separate mission. They go down to the planet, and Alan gets, he goes off to try to, follow the basically the markers that those have already gone out to see if he can find some sort of clue as to where everyone has suddenly disappeared to. And he ends up falling into a pit. Well, it's sort of a trap. Someone has dug it out, and a couple Stone Age people show up. He gets into a tussle with them, and they ultimately end up leaving him there, thinking, maybe they think he's dead. But one of them seems to be pretty enamored with his communicator, his comlock. So they somehow are able to make their way to where the Eagles are. Of course, Sandra's still on the Eagle, so they end up kidnapping her. They drag her off to whatever their underground cave lair is, which, by the way, this set was used, or the cave design was just repainted, but it was used from Death's Other Dominion, the previous episode. And this was filmed in the Black Forest there in England, but it was the first show filmed off of Pinewood Studio. Now, if you don't know, that's, some of the greatest movies ever were filmed on Pinewood Studio. But anyway, so and then that leads Victor and Kano to come down, and of course they begin to search. Well, they find Alan, and Alan is sure that anyone who's gone into this wall of mist has suddenly disappeared. Well, they end up in the underground cavern, and it doesn't take long before Alan realizes that this group of Stone Age people have kidnapped Sandra. Now, a little earlier, Sandra will come to the horrifying realization that the tribal chiefs or cave chiefs, our chief is Koenig, or one who looks a whole lot like Koenig, and his wife, who looks a whole lot like Helena. This becomes like a really horrifying trip for Sandra. And so eventually they'll catch up there, and they'll slowly but surely start to put some pieces together, although there's not a full realization of what has happened until towards the end. Although Koenig, now Sandra will ultimately end up attacking him, knocking him out. She'll flee from the cave system, and then they'll go after her. Now, eventually all of this is going to come to a fitting conclusion. And they're going to realize that there is sort of like this alien time warp that's hidden within this wall of mist, and anytime anyone goes into there, they're suddenly catapulted back about 40,000 years into their more primitive state. And so that really becomes the crux of the show, is this notion of who are we as people, and have we really changed, in 40,000 years? Does humanity actually, is humanity moving to a better place in terms of how we relate to each other, treat each other? And the show offers some interesting insight and questions as to whether or not have we really changed. I mean, you'll see, when Sandra attacks the cave chief Koenig, she is resorting to the type of violence that you would assume only existed thousands of years ago. But in fact, that violence still resides in us. And so the show really does start to get deep into who we are as people, and where does this violence come from? Now, they really never address that aspect, but they do just start to, try to talk about it. And have we really changed, and how hard are we really striving to change? It is a kind of a fascinating show, although I'll be honest, it's not one of the ones that had me on the edge of my seat like some previous ones have. It's funny, there's one of the characters who plays one of the cave people, Oliver Cotton. He was actually in Firefox. I knew I knew him from somewhere. And so I revisited Firefox on it. Now, if you don't know Firefox, that's that Cold War piece with Clint Eastwood, where he sent into Soviet Union to steal a new jet. Really think The Hunt for Red October, but it's a jet that needs to be taken away from the Soviets before it's utilized against the Americans. This is a Cold War picture. But anyways, he plays Dmitri in there. He's a Soviet, Oliver Cotton. And so, I mean, there you go, guest appearances, right? We're always finding people and putting people in, they'll go off and do other things, generally speaking. And so really that's the crux. Some of the exterior shots shot in the Black Forest are amazing. It really does set an interesting feeling of ambiance or just atmosphere in terms of just the location, this planet. Really gorgeous, absolutely stunningly beautiful at points. And it does give the characters of Moonbase Alpha, our characters, an opportunity to really act out their roles in different ways. So, Koenig gets to, play himself, but in earlier 40,000 year earlier vintage self. And so, of course, man, none of the intellect is there. He is just a raging barbarian, which, you had to imagine they had a lot of fun playing these roles. So it is an interesting piece, and one that now that I'm actually talking about it and thinking about it, actually I may end up going back and watching it again, which I really didn't think that was going to be the case. But it is interesting. I'm trying to think if there's anything else real quick. I don't want to go too long. Released or first aired December 11th, 1975. It's an interesting piece. And then, of course, at the end, as I shared with you, at the very end, Koenig, towards the very end of the show, remarks, because we couldn't speak to each other, couldn't communicate, we misunderstood, yet it was only us there. And sort of reflecting on, how much has humanity changed? And one would beg to offer that just turn on the news and I don't know how much we've really changed at all. Or are we really changing at all? It's an interesting philosophical sort of, and some would even argue maybe theological argument or conversation to have in terms of who we are as people. And so that is what this particular show has to offer, and some really neat location shooting, of course the miniatures and everything else. Say the same thing all the time. The stuff stands the test of time. It looks freaking awesome, all of it, visually speaking. It is an amazing show to watch. And so anyway, so episode 15, The Full Circle. Next up, End of Eternity. And this guy, I can't remember his name, but it's a huge guest appearance. I'm pretty sure, if I remember that show right, it is a really big guest appearance. So anyways, that's the next one, End of Eternity. We'll be taking a look at that this week. So as always, man, go Bills.